What's up, Bama Insider Nation? This is another Bama Insider recruiting update with specialist Andrew Bone. My name is Trey Yanity. Thank you for being with us here today. Andrew, this is the busiest time of the year when it comes to recruiting. This week, these last couple weekends especially, really, really busy times. It's been a lot of fun to follow, to talk about, and today we're going to be previewing a weekend that has a lot in store. Let's talk about, what's kind of happened already this week. Alabama held another camp on Monday. Your last video really took us up to Friday. Let's talk about this past weekend. It's a little bit slower, but still had some new offers and some other news to talk about. A couple players I want to focus on, Eli Holstein and Nathaniel Joseph, two young men that receive offers. Talk about them, how important these offers are, and kind of what you expect to happen next.
Yeah, the biggest thing we've seen so far is, Alabama finally having an opportunity to evaluate a lot of these kids in person, especially in this 2023 class. I think for the 2022 class, they know most of the guys. We've seen a few new offers that have gone out in 2022. Not many, but, a lot of the guys have been able to work out. Some of them have just been on campus for visits. A lot of official visitors, a lot of guys who just kind of stopped in for camp. But, this has been a really big summer so far in terms of the 2023, the 2024 type recruits who are finally getting evaluated in person. And, a lot of these guys will still be seen, down the road. They'll be seen, in a game situation this fall. But we saw a couple new offers this weekend. Eli Holstein out of Louisiana. A lot of people have been asking me, is Arch Manning the only quarterback target for Alabama in this 2023 recruiting class? And now Arch is a top target for the Crimson Tide. He's going to be visiting Alabama this upcoming weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a bit. But Eli Holstein came to Tuscaloosa and really shined at the Tides camp. I think he measured in it, a little bit over 6'3", about 215 pounds. Had a great showing at camp. We had an opportunity to speak to him about the overall visit. Really enjoyed working with Coach Bill O'Brien. Really enjoyed sitting down with Coach Saban. Him and his family and younger sister were in town. They really liked it a lot. And it was his second visit to Alabama. He visited Alabama a couple years ago and says that he's definitely going to return, hopefully, for a game this fall. So he's definitely somebody that we're going to continue to watch, pay close attention to moving forward. Is one of Alabama's top quarterback targets in that 2023 recruiting class. But another player who really impressed, and this is kind of a guy that I don't want to say he was unknown, but he's unranked right now. He's got a lot of offers, picked up a lot of offers throughout the spring, and that's Nathaniel Joseph. Nathaniel Joseph shows up to Alabama's camp, didn't have an offer from the Tide before the camp, and really impressed. I mean, I talked to a number of people who talked about players who've really shined at Alabama's multiple camps so far this summer, and this is a name that continued to pop up. Worked out at receiver, had been compared to Jalen Waddle from the Alabama coaching staff after his performance down in Tuscaloosa. And how about that? Also out of Miami, and we know where Jalen Waddle is playing in the NFL right now. So I'm sure he really likes Alabama a lot. Really enjoyed the trip there. So he's definitely coming back here in the future. So Nathaniel Joseph, certainly a new name for Alabama fans to watch over the course of the next couple of years moving forward. We know how well Alabama has recruited the Sunshine State, particularly South Florida, at the receiver position through the years. So definitely a new name to continue to watch. We did see some kids that visited camp on Monday. Not a big camp. I mean, there were definitely a lot of players there, but in terms of the elite players, a couple of guys from Ohio, Brennan Vernon, defensive lineman, Luke Montgomery, two defensive linemen who earned offers from Alabama, both in the 2023 class from Ohio. I still think a lot of these 2023 offers, you still got to see them in the fall. You still got to see them play. So I think, a lot of these guys are having good camps, but still got to evaluate them a little bit further down the road. And you have time to, because they're only entering their junior season this fall. So you get a chance to evaluate them and recruit them a little bit longer than you do for the 22 class. And then there was one 2022 wide receiver who received an offer on Monday, and that was Marion Walker out of New Orleans, Ponchatoula High School in Louisiana. I don't know why I said New Orleans, but Ponchatoula High School in Louisiana, is committed to Notre Dame right now, still committed to the Fighting Irish. I still think Alabama, somewhat like these 2023 guys, still probably wants to see him a little bit more down the road, probably before they take a commitment. And as I've said for a while, this is a little bit of a smaller wide receiver class, and we've seen in the past now. I don't think they're going to take 5 wide receivers. I definitely think they're going to take 3, but will they potentially take 4? I think that's kind of the line that Alabama is kind of teetering with right now. Will they take 3 receivers or will they take 4? Now, they don't have any receivers currently committed, so you got to kind of wait and see what's going to happen over the course of the next few months. Can they get somebody on board here pretty soon? They've had a couple of really good wide receivers on campus over the course of the last couple of weeks, including Barry and Brown, who took an official visit a few weekends ago. Amari Kelly, in-state wide receiver from Hewitt-Trussville. Now, this is a very intriguing prospect because we knew that Alabama was on him kind of early. It seemed like things had kind of slowed down until he ended up participating in Alabama's camp on Monday. Heard great things about his showing at Alabama's camp. Also heard that Alabama, looks at him, maybe like a John Mechie type receiver, somebody that can get the job done. Very athletic, very physical, and catches everything thrown to him. So Alabama really impressed with Amari Kelly out of Hewitt-Trussville High School here in Alabama. So would not be surprised if we saw him potentially in Alabama's recruiting class, along with Kendrick Law, wide receiver out of Louisiana. Camped at Alabama, worked out last Thursday, really had a good showing. Rated as an athlete, but Alabama worked him out at wide receiver. So those are a couple new names. We've talked about a lot of other wide receivers throughout the year, Barry and Brown being one, Evan Stewart from Texas being another guy that we've talked about a good bit. But Alabama really likes these other guys that have really kind of moved up their recruiting board over the course of the last a couple weeks, especially with Kendrick Law and Amari Kelly. And they'll have a big one on campus this weekend in Luther Burden, who we'll also talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the receiver talk is always a fun one. You look at this past class, talk about the state of Florida, really specifically there, Jai Hall, Christian Leary. I mean, they're really, doing good work down there in Florida. Let's talk about some linebackers, though, real quick. Guys, Sean Murphy's going to get to town on Tuesday. We're going to see Earl Little Jr. Get to town on Thursday. Kind of add into this big week. What's the latest on those two guys? And, what do you expect out of their visit to T-Town?
Well, yeah, I think, a big position that Alabama, still trying to kind of, figure out in this 2022 recruiting class is linebacker. Now, they do have Robert Woodyard committed, but, who's going to be the next linebacker commitment? Who's going to jump on board? I do think Alabama has a great chance to land Shamar James out of Faith Academy in Mobile, who took an official visit to Alabama a few weeks ago. They're going to have some big names on campus this weekend, and Nye White, Jaron Kanak, who are going to be taking officials with the Crimson Tide. But who's going to, is there another linebacker that Alabama can potentially land? Sean Murphy, 5-star linebacker from Virginia, took an unofficial visit to Alabama on Tuesday, worked out for the Crimson Tide. Heard he had a great performance. Now, Murphy visited Alabama last year for Junior Day back in February before COVID shut things down. I think when he visited last February, he was around about 230 pounds. Big kid, just after his junior or his sophomore season. He shows up in Tuscaloosa on Tuesday, measuring in about 210 pounds, looked extreme, and this is in a good way. This isn't, oh, wow, why is he so thin? This is very good. This is a guy who's lost some weight, can run, looks very athletic, and can keep up with these offenses that are in the SEC these days. So that's something that Alabama is very intrigued with. They were, like I said, very impressed with his performance. I think Alabama's probably going to really step things up with Sean Murphy over the course of the next few months, leading up until his senior season. I don't think he's going to make a decision this summer. So I do think Alabama is going to continue to recruit him moving forward. But, there's so many top kids that are going to be coming into Tuscaloosa this weekend, whether that's official visitors, unofficial visitors, people who are competing in Alabama's O-line, D-line camp. Alabama's also having a 7-on-7 tournament high school 7-on-7 tournament. So we're going to see a lot of different kids that are going to be making their way to Tuscaloosa with their high school teams to compete in this tournament on Saturday. There's a barbecue on Friday night, which I don't think it's necessarily we've seen different universities hold these big recruiting events at their schools. But Alabama's having this barbecue. They're not necessarily making a big emphasis on it. Hey, if you're in town, we'd love to have you come by. If you're coming in for the weekend, stop by. The official visitors are going to be in town. They're going to be over there with their families having fun at this little barbecue on Friday night. Leading up till then, though, Earl Little Jr., Rivals 100 cornerback out of American Heritage High School in Plantation, Florida. He's going to be making a trip to Tuscaloosa on Thursday, and he's staying throughout the entire weekend. And this is just an unofficial visit. He's going to be coming back for an official visit a little bit later on in the year. I think he's got the official set for the November 6th weekend when Alabama hosts LSU. Can Alabama potentially go ahead and get Earl Little Jr. on its commitment board this weekend? I think there's a chance. Now, he says he's not going to commit anytime soon. He's going to wait it out, going to enjoy the process. But Alabama is the heavy favorite for Earl Little. I think they got a chance to potentially wrap him up this weekend. I know he's going to be blown away by the weekend trip. And, Alabama currently has 7 commitments. A lot of Alabama fans wondering when's that next commitment going to happen. I still think there's a lot of guys out there that they're in great shape with. They're just enjoying their trips, enjoying these visits this summer because it's the first time they've ever been able to really do this. So will Alabama be able to get over that hump a little bit, get one of its major targets in this 2022 recruiting class on board this weekend? I think there's a good chance with Earl Little, especially with him coming in Thursday through Sunday. I think they could seal the deal with him over the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be a great get, this early. And just the fact that he's showing this much interest, I think is a really good sign for Alabama. But, like we've been talking about all show, Andrew, and guys, please hit that like button for me. Get in the comments. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us what you want to hear about. Everything else, hit our website, guys. Thank you for being a part of Bama Insider. But, this is a major weekend. This is one of the biggest weekends of the summer. A lot of top prospects coming in. You talk about a guy like a USC commitment. Damani Jackson, another 5-star wide receiver, and Luther Burden coming in. Zach Rice, the offensive lineman we've heard so much about. Talk about how big it is. This weekend is for these guys. And, what's the latest on those players? What are they thinking as far as Alabama goes? Maybe who else is coming into town this weekend that we're not expecting to see?
Someone asked me earlier, is this a weekend where Alabama really presses for commitments? No, not necessarily. This is a weekend where Alabama, really digs in and develops these relationships with these guys who they've had contact with, whether it's Zoom calls or FaceTimes or text messages, phone calls, stuff like that. Now you finally get a chance to sit down with them. Coach Saban gets a chance to sit down with them in his office and talk to them and their family. They get a chance to hang out at the barbecue on Friday night and get to know their position coaches and their families and get comfortable just around the university. A lot of these guys are visiting Alabama for the very first time, and they're going to see a lot of things there that they've never seen before, that they're going to be blown away with, especially, the sports science facility and, sitting with David Ballou and Dr. Matt Ray and spending time with the nutrition staff and, Jeff Allen and his staff. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be very eye-opening to these guys this weekend. So, what you're really doing this weekend is developing these connections with these guys and, seeing where you stand after the weekend. Are they going to make decisions this summer? Are they going to wait until the fall? Are you going to bring them back for an official visit or even just a game this fall? So that's really what this weekend is all about. We're going to see a lot of officials, a lot of unofficials. Damani Jackson coming in all the way from California. Now, we had originally thought that Damani was coming in for an official visit, but it's just going to be an unofficial visit. He's going to come in, spend some time on campus. Now, this is the same high school that produced Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. And, look at there. A couple of years ago, Alabama was recruiting Bryce Young. He was committed to USC and then flips his commitment to Alabama. Now, I do think back then Alabama probably had a little bit better chance with Bryce Young than they probably do with Damani right now. But fact is, he's coming all the way to Tuscaloosa on his own dime. Going to visit the campus, going to spend some time with the coaching staff, get to know the university a little bit more. I'm sure Bryce is going to show him the ropes, what Alabama is all about. And then will he potentially come back for an official visit down the road? Luther Burden, 5-star wide receiver, number one wide receiver in the country, according to Rivals.com, out of East St. Louis High School in Illinois. Now, it's not a big weekend for Luther Burden in Tuscaloosa. He's just expected to be in town for one day for the 7-on-7 camp. His high school team's coming in for. So we'll see how much time he really gets to see the campus, see the facilities, spend time with Coach Saban, because his team's going to be competing in the 7-on-7 tournament all day Saturday. So how much time is he really going to be able to spend? Now, has said that he's going to come back for an official visit in the fall, so he gets a little bit more time on campus. But this can still be a big impression day for him. What does he think about the facilities that he does see? What does he think about meeting with the coaching staff? How hard are they going to really make this strong push for him after finally seeing him in person for the first time? So these are some questions that Alabama fans are hoping to get answered this weekend. A lot of official visitors that are going to be in town. A lot of big names. Danny Dennis Sutton, who's a 5-star defensive end out of Maryland, is coming into town. This is a big visit for him. He's already taken a couple other official visits, and it's going to be making that decision probably sometime in July. You also have Zach Rice, 5-star offensive tackle from Virginia, going to be making his trip to Alabama this weekend. Very big target for the Crimson Tide. Alabama doesn't have any offensive line commitments just yet. Zach Rice is a guy who didn't have Alabama in his top 8 several months ago. Back in the fall, Alabama continued to chip away, made his top 5, now considered one of the top schools on his list. So, how big of an impression can new offensive line coach Doug Marrone and Alabama coaching staff make on Zach Rice this weekend? And Nia White, Rivals 100 linebacker out of Philadelphia, going to be making his trip to Tuscaloosa. Many Alabama fans will remember Nia White's from earlier this spring when the video went viral of Coach Saban talking to a recruit on Zoom, and just kind of how intimate that conversation was, and how long the conversation was that got out there on social media. A lot of Alabama fans were wondering, was Alabama going to continue to recruit him? That since that video came out, Alabama didn't really care that much. They really liked Nia White a lot. He's been a top target for them for a long time. I'm really intrigued, by a couple other prospects that are going to be coming into town. Jaron Kanak, who received an offer from Alabama back in May. Really talented athlete out of Hayes High School in Kansas, 6'2", 210 pounds. Can he play on the offensive side of the ball, or is he strictly a defensive side of the ball type guy? We'll have to wait and see, after the weekend where Alabama really thinks that he can play, but definitely somebody that's a very intriguing prospect. Bryce Anderson, 4-star safety out of Texas, who visited Alabama a couple years ago prior to committing to LSU, and then ends up reopening his recruitment back earlier this year. Has Alabama now in his top 3 with Texas and Texas A&M. Going to be making a decision, I believe, sometime in July. I think it's July the 4th when he's going to be announcing his college decision. Alabama's also going to have a big tight end on campus this weekend. Jaleel Skinner, 4-star tight end out of Greer, South Carolina. And this is a guy that Alabama has on their short list of tight end targets. Can they get another tight end on board along with Elijah Brown, who's also going to be making his first trip to Tuscaloosa this weekend? So a lot of big official visitors coming into town, a lot of big unofficial visitors. Elijah Pritchett, 4-star offensive tackle out of Georgia, who we also thought was going to be making a trip to Tuscaloosa here this or going to be making an official visit to Alabama this weekend. Is going to take an unofficial visit. So good news there is he's going to come back for an official a little bit later on. This is going to be his second visit to Alabama already this year. So it's just an absolute monster weekend. And that's just the 2022 guys. And there's other 2022 guys that are going to be coming into town. Ty Simpson's going to be back. Emmanuel Henderson's going to be back in town. Shamar Stewart, who's a Rivals 100 defensive end out of Florida. South Florida is going to be making his first trip to Alabama for the O-line, D-line camp this weekend. It's just an absolute monster of a recruiting weekend. Plus, you have one of the biggest names in the 2023 class that's going to be making his first ever trip to Alabama, and that's Arch Manning. That's probably the name that a lot of Alabama fans are really intrigued by, with his his uncles and his grandfather and his father Cooper Manning. Definitely definitely going to be helping his son try to make the right decision in that 2023 recruiting class. But a big visit for him. He's already visited Clemson and Texas already this summer, so he's going to be coming in on Friday, staying throughout the entire weekend. So we'll learn a little bit more about where things stand with Alabama and Arch Manning after this weekend trip.
It's going to be a fun one. I mean, you've heard about Arch for so long now, and you always hear the stories that Cooper, his father, the brother of Peyton and Eli, was the best Manning, and Arch is now going to be the best. So it'll be a fun one to see. He said Ty Simpson, so many guys in town this weekend. As we move along here, guys, hit that like button for me. Just a little bit more in this one, Andrew, as we prep for really starting Thursday into Friday and Saturday. You mentioned the OL, the DL camps. There's a 7-on-7 Saturday as well. What's the details on those two? And, to kind of close out here, let's just talk about who's next. Alabama fans always want to talk about who's next to commit. Is there another commitment or two after this monster weekend? We've kind of touched on it throughout the show, but is there anybody in specific we need to be looking out for, as this weekend gets upon us here?
Yeah, with the with Saturday O-line D-line camp on Saturday on campus. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some guys that are in town. We've seen so many top guys that have come in throughout the last few months or last few weeks to participate in Alabama's camps, and not a ton of really big names that are going to be competing in camp. Now, Peter Woods, number 5 overall player in the 2023 class, he plans on coming back, working out at the camp. I'm really intrigued to see how Walter Bobb does at Alabama's camp. Defensive end commitment out of Louisiana, committed back in February. How well is he going to perform for the Crimson Tide? Because I don't know a lot about him, and I really would like to know a little bit more about this Walter Bobb commitment. I think Alabama fans are really intrigued by him as well. So how well is he going to do? Who are some of the offensive linemen that are going to come into town? We know about the 2022 guys, but who are some of the 2023 guys that are going to come in, impress, and make a big impression on the Alabama coaching staff? I know James Smith, one of the best defensive linemen in the country in the 2023 class, is going to be in town. I think Peter Woods and James Smith might have two pretty good days in Tuscaloosa at that O-line D-line camp. There's a 7-on-7 tournament that's going to be going on. Now, this is mainly just a high school tournament. This isn't, we see these elite traveling 7-on-7 teams that are made up of these all-star prospects. This is just, frankly, a 7-on-7 tournament for high school teams that are going to be coming in, really throughout the country, whether it's, Thompson High School in Alabama, or it's, East St. Louis High School in Illinois. There's just a lot of different schools that are going to be coming in, competing, and we'll see a lot of different names that are on campus throughout the weekend that we don't even know about just yet, just because we don't have the list of the complete high school teams that are going to be competing in this tournament, but there should be a lot of them that are going to be competing, and a lot of big names. So in terms of commitments, it seems like everybody wants to know who's going to be the next commitment. It doesn't matter if this big name prospect's on campus. Who's going to commit next? And, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Does Earl Little Jr. potentially go ahead and jump on board? I'm continuing to watch his recruitment, see if he decides to go ahead and end it this weekend. Elijah Pritchett, 4-star offensive tackle out of Georgia, who, I really think Alabama has a great chance to land him. This is going to be his second visit to Tuscaloosa already this year. Does Alabama potentially win him over this weekend, or does he continue to let things go a little bit longer and enjoy the process and take visits this fall before making that decision? Another interesting guy I'm probably watching is Traquan Fagans. Now, Alabama has some elite defensive back targets that they're going after, and there's two guys in state that I know that they really like: Antonio Kite and Traquan Fagans. Traquan just recently moved over to Thompson High School, transferred from Oxford High School. Thompson High School, played for one of the best programs in the state. So does Alabama potentially land a commitment from Traquan Fagans, who camped at Alabama earlier this month? really impressed the coaching staff. Does Alabama potentially push ahead with him here in the next couple of days? We'll have to wait and see, but definitely somebody that we're keeping an eye on. But you never know. I mean, a few weeks ago, Le'Veon Moss jumped on board with Alabama, and we were not expecting that commitment to happen, even though Alabama really liked him a lot and really wanted him as part of the class. We weren't expecting it. We were expecting maybe somebody like Shamar James to jump on board with Alabama last week. But now, heading on to this weekend, kind of thinking maybe it's going to be Earl Little, but maybe it's somebody else.
So many names. I mean, you just go through the list here, and we'll see with a guy like Earl Little that has shown a lot of interest, maybe a commitment from him this weekend, maybe some other big ones. It's going to be a major weekend, one of the biggest of the summer. Andrew, your final thoughts before we get out of here.
Well, just stay tuned. I mean, this is obviously a monster recruiting weekend. There's going to be another massive recruiting weekend next week, but we'll have a ton of content on BamaInsider.com. We already have, a recruiting preview, just overall weekend preview of all the top guys that are coming in, where things kind of stand in their recruitment. And now you get the video. We also have key storylines to watch coming up on Bama Insider Plus. A lot more content over the next few days. So be sure to stay tuned to BamaInsider.com, because we'll be throwing out a lot of different nuggets, a lot of scoop over the next few days as visitors roll into town, either official visitors, unofficial visitors, campers, whatever it may be. We'll have it all covered on BamaInsider.com.
We will indeed, guys. You can get the latest updates at BamaInsider.com, as well as here on our YouTube page, on our social media, at Bama Insider, on Twitter and Instagram. Andrew, thank you so much for breaking it down this morning. I always learn so much about these guys and the world of recruiting when we get on here. Hit that like button for me one more time, everybody. Get in the comments. Let us know what you think. We appreciate all of your support. For Andrew Bone, my name is Trey Anity. This has been a Bama Insider Daily Recruiting Update. Have a great week, everybody. Roll Tide.